Yes, Commissioner Gardner, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Great. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon. Sounds like it's a little bit low on the volume. I want this one over here. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're going to start our Board of County Commission meeting. And we've got three commissioners. Two commissioners are here. Commissioner Gardner, as you heard, is on the phone and headed this direction. As always, we start with a prayer, a reading of thought, and then the Pledge of Allegiance. And we look to the audience for volunteers. Are there any volunteers for the prayer, reading, or thought? And then to lead us in a pledge. No volunteers? I'll do the prayer if you want to lead us in the pledge. Will that be fine? Okay. Our Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for the opportunity to gather together peaceably, be able to work through issues and challenges and opportunities to work with different thoughts. We're grateful and we recognize, Father, that we live in a great land, that Thou hast provided for us. We recognize also that there are many throughout the world that don't have the opportunities or blessings that we have, and we pray that we can be good stewards of them. We're thankful for those who protect our freedoms in any way, either through armed conflict or through processes and dialogue. We pray that we can have civil dialogue as we continue forward and looking at the issues. We thank Thee always for the blessings, and especially as this time as we celebrate our 4th of July, we are so grateful for those who have stood strong in the past, and we pray that we can have the same strength to move forward into the future. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a special treat, and Commissioner Sakovich has asked Micaiah Anderson. We met her at the prayers breakfast, the mayor's prayer. Freedom Festival breakfast. Finally got it out. And she did such a wonderful job. We were so impressed. We invited her to come give her speech that she gave there. It's on the key to America's greatness, which really kind of flows with this week and where we're at. And so we would invite her to come on up and give your speech.
Two summers ago, I had the opportunity to go to New York City for the very first time. I was so excited to finally get to see world-renowned American monuments like the Statue of Liberty, the Brooklyn Bridge, the World Trade Center, and Wall Street. And all of those sites were incredible. Everywhere I went, I saw evidence of a great and prosperous country. But as I walked through the streets of Manhattan, I had this question at the back of my mind. What is it that makes America great? Everywhere I went in New York, I looked for the answer. But surprisingly, I didn't find it in any of those places that I just referred to. No, instead I found the answer in a place that I least expected. I found it in an old stone church. It's called St. Paul's Chapel, and it's the only colonial-era church still standing in Manhattan today. And this chapel has a history that absolutely enthralled me. As I stood on the steps of that chapel, my mind took me back to 200 years earlier, to the early morning of April 30th, 1789. That morning, George Washington stood on the balcony of the Federal Building, and with his hand placed upon the Bible, was inaugurated as the first president of the United States. After the inauguration, George Washington then led the House, the Senate, and his cabinet on a 9-minute walk to St. Paul's Chapel. When they got there, they all knelt in a small cemetery outside of the chapel, very close to where I was standing. And in that moment, each and every one of them solemnly united in prayer, voiced by President Washington himself to, quote, commit the new government to the holy protection and blessing of the Most High, unquote. Now I want you to try and visualize this scene in your mind like I did. Here I was standing on the steps of this special building, and I realized that President Washington's prayer serves as a bold reminder of something that our country has always stood for, something that has always been so important to the American people as to be the first right listed in our Constitution, specifically in the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. You see, our founding fathers, who were of different religious backgrounds themselves, recognized that the best way to preserve religious liberty was to keep government out of religion. More than anything, they wanted to protect that fundamental human right that allows every individual to think, express, and act as they deeply believe. And that morning, in 1789, those founding fathers of different religions all united in their newly shared religious freedom. So here I was, standing in the cemetery where President Washington had exercised his freedom of religion all those years ago. And it suddenly became very clear to me. I had just seen the regal beauty of the Statue of Liberty. I had just seen the economic prosperity of Wall Street. I had just seen the glamorous World Trade Center. But it wasn't until I stood in that humble cemetery next to St. Paul's Chapel that I finally found the answer I was looking for. It reminds me of a famous quote that is said to be by Alexis de Tocqueville. I sought for the genius and greatness for America in her harbors and her ample rivers, and it was not there. In her fertile fields and her boundless forests, and it was not there. In her rich mines and her vast world commerce, and it wasn't there. In her democratic Congress and her matchless Constitution, and it was not there. No, not until I went into the churches of America and saw her pulpits aflame with righteousness did I understand the secret to her genius and power. America is great because she is good. And when America ceases to be good, she will cease to be great. I can't think of anything more prevalent for Americans today to understand than that. So during this time, when our religious freedom is under attack more than ever before, we as Americans must understand it is America's pulpits, her churches, and her people that make this country great. It's individuals like you and I who keep this flame alive. So let's practice our religion, whatever it may be. Let's keep America great. Thank you.
You. She came all the way down from Weber County to deliver that, right?
Hour and a half drive
Yep.
just for this.
So thank you. That was fantastic, and it goes to show of the promise that we have as a people. And we have young people like this that are doing great things. So thank you. Thanks for coming all the way, Commissioner.
Micaiah is just graduated from high school and is preparing to go on a Latter-day Saint mission. But throughout school, she's been on state and national levels on several different sporting activities, and including mock trials, oratorial contests, and she's deep into debates, politics, music, and law, and plans to continue on after her mission in the world of English and law school. And she wants to be more involved as she gets older. So I'm grateful that she came an hour and a half down here. So thank you, Micaiah.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Commissioner Gardner, I'm not sure how close you are. Would you like to work through the agenda with us on the phone, or are you close enough that we?
Yeah, I can see the building. I can see the building, but I am just at a red light, so maybe 3 minutes.
Okay,
I'm fine if you want to work through the agenda.
okay. If that works. Otherwise, we could take a short recess too and wait for you to get here. What do you prefer?
Now, why don't we do that? Take a 5-minute recess, and I'll be there by then.
Okay, we'll do that then. We'll take a 5-minute recess and wait for you to come walking in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Taking a lot of recesses. Okay, Rob Moore, can you hear us online?
Yes, I can, Commissioner. Thank you.
All right, we can hear you as well. Great. We'll get back from whatever you want to call it, recess, timeout, break, whatever.
Respite.
Now we'll go to our agenda. If you're looking at our agenda, you'll notice that the consent agenda is blank. We are going to fill that. I am anticipating that we'll fill that agenda with items that we do not hold. So if we hold an item, it will stay on regular agenda. Otherwise, it will go to the consent agenda to either be ratified, approved, agreed to, or whatever the wording is on the agenda. So let's start with items. What if we go 1 through 20? Are there items on there that anybody would like to hold?
I'm good having them all consent. Item 20 is merely we're incorporating state code, the county code.
Yeah, I'm fine with all of them going on to consent.
Item 4, I think you're going to have to clarify at least as to what action you're taking. The item says ratify all or portions.
Oh.
And my understanding is there's an item that is not being ratified from the sale, but probably is not on the attached lists.
Okay, let's just hold that item then. We'll
Let's
hold
number
that
4.
and come back to it. On item number 15, there was a comment in the section that said that it requires a budget transfer. Do we need to hold that for any discussion or just to kind of understand where that's coming from, or? Okay, so we'll leave that on. I just want to make sure that so
So we're holding 15.
holding number 4, not just 4 only. Not 15. Okay, items, let's go through 21 through 32.
Should hold 29, 30, 31, and 32.
And item number 22 is to approve and authorize, and I'm fine with it staying on consent. I know that you're here, you're probably fine to leave it on consent, right? Just have it done, okay? All right, let's leave that on consent then as well. And so hold 29, 30, 31, and 32.
Yep.
On the closed meetings, what are the items we need there, Dave?
33, I think.
33 and 36, to my understanding.
33 and 36. Any other items, commissioners?
I have one.
So if we can leave it on consent, that we'll strike item number 34 and 35, and that we will approve and set a date, time, and location for a closed meeting as stated in number 33 and 36. Okay, Alice, go over that.
Okay. All right, we've held number 4. Wow, number 29, 30, 31, and 32. And then we will hold 33 as stated. We have stricken number 34 and 35, and we'll hold closed meeting number 36 as stated.
Right. That's what I have. Okay, and then all other items have been moved to consent, like I mentioned, to either be ratified, approved, or agreed to. The ones that we just stated are the ones we'll be talking about and discussing. So with that, let's move to item number 4. Paul, I think you're the one who was walking up there anyway.
I was. Bert's online.
Okay. So Bert, are you?
Yes. Excuse me, Commissioners, I am here. I'll go ahead and turn on my camera so you can see my smiling face. Hi. Number 4, this is just all of the parcels that were sold on the tax sale.
There we go.
This is all the list of the ones that can be ratified at this time that are not being held for either a pending protest hearing, which we have one coming up in a couple of weeks, or there was an existing federal tax lien that requires a 120-day wait period before we can ratify it. All these on here were sold. They have not been protested, and they do not have anything else stopping them from being ratified. So we'd like to get these ratified this time so I can now issue tax deeds and get the ownership change recorded. Obviously not in time for evaluation notices, but in time for tax notices this October. So do you have any questions or anything else about these items?
I don't, Paul.
Just for a point of clarity, you might just state that it's the portion of the tax sale as contained on the attachment. So the whole attachment has the portion that we think you ought to ratify.
So that should be in the motion.
And to point out that the attachment contains both parcels that were sold and parcels that were unsold. So these are the parcels that were sold to the highest bidder or otherwise bidders on the sale, and also the second page is parcels that were struck to the county where no bid was made.
Okay. Any questions to it? Motion then.
Make a motion that we adopt agenda item 4 as outlined.
I'll second that motion.
I got a motion and a second. Are we good on that, Paul, or did you want something else? And it sounded like you wanted something in that motion a little bit more specific.
The portions that are outlined.
Okay.
On the attachment, just those portions that are on the attachment.
Yeah. Okay. So those portions that are on the attachment, I get a motion, second, still good?
Yep.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I do have one question for Bert if he's still on the line. I know that this was the first year we've done an online tax sale, and I was wondering if he could give us a little bit of an overview on how that went and if that ended up being a positive experience, or what your thoughts on that are.
Thank you, Commissioner. Generally, I would say positive experience. I mean, from an administrative standpoint, there was really not a lot of difference in work for myself or for the tax sale committee. I mean, we still had to have a live auction for our undivided interest and preferred bidder parcels that were sold, people that had a vested interest or a possessory interest that we were giving them basically first right of refusal on. In terms of the bidding, I think that for the parcels that did sell, I think honestly, I feel like that they sold at a higher value than they would have had we done it live. The one advantage of going with an online seller, and the reason we picked this particular online auction vendor, is because property auction, specifically tax sale auctions, are all they do. We, of course, use another vendor for all of our other surplus, and they're a great vendor. But we felt like this vendor, because of their background, specifically in property and tax sale auctions, we felt that we would get a better audience for our sale, especially where we had a couple of properties this year where we really wanted them to go for the best and most dollar possible. We actually did end up, for the first time since I've been involved with the sale in the 9 years I've been here with the county, we actually did end up selling a home, an improved occupied home that was abandoned, and which the family had chosen not to redeem or could not redeem before the sale. And it went for above what we were predicting it to go for, which was the family felt relatively satisfactory about that process. So that's good. We did have some bidders that were not fans of the online process, and I've taken some feedback from them about maybe some things we can do differently. But I think that overall, at least from our standpoint, from an administrative standpoint, from the bidder standpoint, and from the people who had property sold, I think it was a good experience overall. And I intend to use this vendor next year, provided my boss says he's supportive of that too. And of course, I leave that up to Josh to make the final say as the clerk auditor and the administrator, and the ultimate administrator of the sale. So
yeah. So I want to clarify one thing for the public. The reason it's important that we get a higher sale on those prices, anything beyond the taxes actually goes to the property owners. So if we get a higher sale price on these, it actually benefits the citizens who owned that property. And so I think that that's important. Like you said, for the first time since we can find, we sold a home. And if we sold that at a higher price, the family who was not able to take possession of that home, they actually reap the rewards of that. So I think that's a very important thing to point out, that by doing that, we better serve the public.
So it goes.
Yeah, and thank you, Commissioner Gard, for pointing that out.
Lien holders, right?
Yes, yeah. So it goes
Right.
to the homeowners or the lien holders.
And thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Gardner, because that is a very important aspect. A lot of folks who find themselves facing a tax sale are always nervous about that if it were to go to sale, like, for example, a piece of property that has been in the family that they don't know what to do with and they can't pay the taxes on, they're always concerned, okay, well, we're going to get wiped out. And it's like, no, absolutely not. Anything that's over and above the tax and penalty interest due goes back to the original owner. And so when we actually get to the point of sale, we really want to use the best tool possible to get the highest dollar amount possible. And actually, in a couple of them, not the home itself, because the home had a higher value than what it sold for. But there was a couple of building lots that actually sold for higher than their assessed value. And so we feel pretty good about that. We've done our best effort to maximize where we are actually now selling a person's home or a person's property. We're maximizing the opportunity that they have to gain the highest dollar value for that property, even though it's now no longer theirs. So
That's great. Thank you, Bert.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the next item, which is this one has been continued, is to approve and authorize the signing of a resolution amending the Utah County Capital Planning policy. And I know the last time we looked at this, we wanted to condense it and get it down to where it was a little bit more manageable. I don't know if we've done that or not. I see that like 8 documents on there. It's been rough to kind of navigate through that with all the different documents that are on there, all proposing similar, sometimes not similar, back and forth. And so, commissioners, what's our preference here?
Well, what does the CIP committee think? They're over there. Rochambeau, who has to come to speak.
Hi, my name is Rudy Livingston. I'm the budget manager for the county and also the chair of the CIP committee. We've gone back and forth with a lot of comments, and there's one version that I used to pull pieces of everybody's suggested documents. It started getting too colorful. We couldn't tell what was what, so I combined that all into one. And subsequent to that, Dave Shawcroft and I were going back and forth with a few little modifications to that. And I think we're at a point right now, if we look at that latest document there, I think that encompasses what the other commissioners were looking to accomplish. I think Commissioner Lee and I had a discussion about some of his goals, and I think we met what he was looking to accomplish with that. So as far as the committee's concerned, we could live with, where we were, that final document that I put out there with, Dave Shawcroft's, modifications.
Is that named?
What's it? Oh, I don't.
Are you referring to the committee's version?
Or the
Dave,
proposed
do you see the name on that?
There's one that's named Proposed Revisions 62921.
Yeah, I think that's the one. I didn't like the bi-monthly one, but we'll take it if that's what we got. We weren't really fans of that bi-monthly one, but, Dave and I, we talked through several things, and if that's what the commission decides that it wants, we will do that. I just think that there's other ways to accomplish what the language in that piece said.
I really like the bi-monthly one.
And you know what? And if that's what the commissioner likes, the commissioners.
I'm good starting with the bi-monthly one.
Yeah, if the commissioners prefer that one, you know what? We'll live within whatever the commission decides, and we'll make the best of it. I think some of the tools will.
Commissioner Zakovich, if you got the bi-monthly one,
Yes, the
document,
the 9.
929.
says
Yeah, I believe so.
Bi-monthly review, red line, CIP changes, 9/29/021.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Me too.
I've been trying to digest all of them.
It's hard to go through all of them. That's why I finally combined them into one and
Yeah,
got rid of the color because it was getting too colorful and pretty.
Good thing is it does have the correct date on it.
Yeah.
It does.
Just a joke. It does, though.
I see the bi-monthly was cut in some of these, like paragraph 6.
You know, that document does contain some of the changes that the committee wanted to bring forth in this. And so I think we're comfortable moving forward with that as well.
So I'll tell you, in speaking, and the bi-monthly one is the one that I'm the most comfortable with. And I did talk with Dave Shawcroft. I don't know why I always have to say your first and last name. Maybe it's just to make sure, because there's a lot of Daves. But the thing I like about the bi-monthly one is it does give the commission a lot more interaction on a bi-monthly basis, and also that it'll be put on our agenda as an actionable item. So if action needs to take place, it doesn't have to, but if it does need to take place, action can be taken at that meeting. And so I think just on a pure transparency basis, that there's a lot more interaction, especially if we're dealing with it on a bi-monthly basis with the public and everybody with this version.
Yeah, I think it does a good job of bringing in that transparency, not only for the public, but also for us as a board. But on top of that, it also builds in an efficiency, right? Builds an efficiency, not inefficiency. Builds in an efficiency. And to me, that's very important, that we have the ability to get things done and get things done in an efficient manner without having to kick the can down the road. So I agree with you, Commissioner Lee. I think it does both those things, brings in transparency and brings in some efficiency so that we have the option to have that actionable item bi-monthly. So I would agree that this is where I would like to start as well.
yeah, I would like to compare this a little bit more on line by line as I had it submitted, because I'm not sure if I see everything that the comments I was looking for. I don't see all the direct involvement of the board in here as much as I had seen before. But again, I'm just reading this. I'm half inclined and hate to do it, but continue this one more time, maybe with a clean copy, without the colors that I can kind of compare with. And unfortunately, that would have to be 2 weeks, because next week we don't have a commission meeting.
Does delaying this 2 weeks affect any of our current projects?
No. In fact, it just fits right in fine. Our deadline for submitting new projects for this year is July 16th. So it fits right in with that. That's fine. The committee.
We would still adopt this before looking at new projects.
And from the committee standpoint, we are fine with that. We're fine approving it. We're fine moving forward. Either way, it's fine.
Maybe I can make this suggestion that we just upload this version
And get rid of
only,
everything else. Yeah.
and all the rest of them are gone from there. And then if the commissioners, as you're looking at it, if there's minor changes here and there, that we bring them to this meeting for discussion.
I think that sounds
work?
fair.
I was hesitant to take those versions off because they were not my versions. So I think that makes perfect sense.
I agree. Let's leave this version on, take the other ones off, and then we can bring any changes we have, and we can start from there in 2 weeks.
So I can reload that as a clean version too, so that it's a document that you can look at.
So I
Clean
make a
document.
motion that we continue this for 2 weeks, July
It's the 14th.
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 Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to continue item number 29 for 2 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, number 30 is to authorize an increase in the FTE status from a 3/4 to a full-time vacant career service senior office specialist. This is in judicial services.
Commissioner Lee, I asked the HR to work with the Sheriff's Department to have some preliminary discussions on how this might work, given the budgetary constraints we're under.
Okay.
So if they could come and either as a pair or independent of each other. Ralph?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yvette Rice, Sheriff's Office.
So I'm Ralph Barnes, Human Resources. I have looked at this position, and I've done a evaluation of the workload versus the amount of staffing they have. There does appear to be sufficient workforce to support, the full-time employee. Even though the workload appears to be declining over time, is still above the capability of the current staffing. And I think that even though there's no guarantee that it will continue to increase, I think it's probable at the end of the pandemic, as the courts open, that it will increase. I think it's highly likely. But again, there isn't a guarantee of that. I think a vet would say that it's certain. But anyway, just from a workload standpoint, I think that it is a valid request as far as having the staffing to do so. The issue really comes down to the funding as far as how can this be funded, how can this be increased, and just to say from a HR standpoint, I do prefer the full-time FTEs to the three-quarter FTEs for a variety of reasons. I'm not saying there isn't a necessary reason for the three-quarter FTEs. It's just that the county does lose a little bit on those, and there generally is more efficiency with having one employee working a full day, generally. But there can be arguments about that as well. So it probably is better to have two full-time or a full-time and a three-quarter as opposed to two, three-quarters. Now, with that being said, because the funding is really the issue between the commission and the sheriff's office that needs to be worked out, there are alternatives that could be looked at as far as how this could be accomplished. And from the sheriff's point of view, and I'll let them speak to this, if they could identify funding that they can free up in another account, maybe that's the way to look at it. If time limited employee is an option, although it does add a body into the equation. In some cases, that does give some flexibility. Again, we'd be hiring the three-quarter time employee still, which would perpetuate the three-quarter time employee. Again, whether that's good or bad is up for debate. Again, my preference is the full-time employee. But again, it all comes back to the cost. It all comes back to the cost. How are we
What
going?
is that overall cost impact?
It's $3,600, I believe.
$3,621.62 or 63 cents, I believe.
And that is depending on what level the person is hired at, correct?
That's
It could be
correct. So
less.
that
that's
could
the
vary
max.
up and down.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not up, but it could vary down. And that number would be encumbered into 2022. We have to be clear about that. That funding would be encumbered into the 2022 budget. So there does need to be a plan for how that will be funded without increasing the overall costs in the sheriff's department. So, bottom line for me, and then I'll step out of the way, is that I do feel like the work supports what they've asked for as far as staffing. I just believe there needs to be a clear and fair way to establish the funding that allows us to go forward without increasing the budget of the county.
So Ralph, while you're there,
Yeah.
what are the options to if it goes to a full time, where it does not increase the general fund
Yeah.
on the general fund basis?
Yeah,
What
so-
are those options?
So I'm hoping the sheriff's office can, clearly articulate that. One thing you do need to consider is that, the cost of benefits really will not increase. So that's one thing. There actually is a savings with a full-time employee as compared to a three-quarter time employee because, there is a slight cost in URS benefits, but overall, medical, dental, all that is exactly the same cost to the county for a full-time versus a three-quarter time. So there is a slight advantage that way to the full-time employee. Now, as far as in other departments, we have, frozen positions and freed up funding that way. I don't know if they have any open vacant positions they can freeze, but that's one way. The other way is to, like I said, if they could identify, some money in an account that they have approved for this year, but they are not going to use. Now, it would have to be something that's ongoing so that they could make the case that this isn't going to increase next year as well. So it has to be kind of have, two sides of the same coin, if that makes sense. So those are just some really, quick ideas on how this could be accomplished. And I do think the sheriff's office probably has some other ideas, but, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it sort of does.
Okay.
And part of it comes because last year during the budget process, it was explained that there was going to be one position, a certain amount of money that was there for one, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been filled, and now this is an increase. So I would really like to explore what the options are other than. Besides that, I would prefer that this be taken to our regular budgeting process, in which we look at it then, and then as the sheriff and the others look at their priorities with extra funding, they could take and analyze that and say, yeah, this is of high enough priority that I want to move that direction. That's what I would normally prefer, and I've been pretty consistent with that through this year, and will continue to be that way. So I would really like to see where, besides increasing the general fund, because we're going down as we go down our agenda, we look at we're looking at reducing tax rates. Here we are trying to find ways to reduce, and it's small, and I get it, and it may be needed. It is going down. The workload is going down from what we had in 2015 to this point now. That workload's going down, so it doesn't quite square, for me, and I'd like to see, a way that we can do that without increasing more onto the general fund.
Yeah, I think that making it part of the budget, process that's coming up is, it makes a lot of sense. I know they do have an urgent need now today, so maybe the, creative solution could include a way to bring someone on right away, but not increase what we're spending out of the general fund, or unless there's some other funds available that I'm not aware of. So anyway, I'll, step aside and let you jump in.
Okay. So I apologize. I have a lot of thoughts right now going through my head, and I'm trying to be very succinct and right to the point with what I think is most applicable and what you can most appreciate, and maybe will provide the best justification for the request. As you know, as I made this request, I provided the commission a bit of informational background history, if you will, regarding the position. And the position we're talking about is a senior office specialist position in our civil office. Statutorily, we are obligated to provide certain types of civil process to the citizens of this county. The state mandates this. We, as you saw, initially I provided really only the statistical information since I stepped into stewardship over the Bureau, okay? So Commissioner Lee requested some additional information. He wanted a better historical perspective of statistics, if you will. So what he requested was from year 2015 to present. So in 2015, there were 8,177 total civil requests that were processed through our office. In 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, over 7,000 civil requests were processed through our office. In 2020, unfortunately, COVID hit. And as all other departments experienced, there was a lot of their statistics suffered. Certain services were not provided. As part of what we've experienced, some of the explanation of the diminished requests for civil process have to do with the court processes that were shut down. So you're aware of the moratorium on evictions, the eviction process, I'm sure. I know that that has touched you. I know you guys have made statements about that. That will shortly be lifted. When that happens, we will be inundated with requests. I anticipate it. You have a lot of citizens who are suffering all the way around, citizens who have lost their jobs, who cannot meet their financial obligations, but you have property owners as well who suffer loss because they ultimately have responsibility to meet their obligations as well. So to date, when I sent the email last, we were just a couple requests shy of 3,000 requests, civil process requests already this year. Last year, we had over 6,000. I anticipate we'll have at least over 6,000 this year. If you look at the number of positions that we have in our current staffing plan who provide this sort of administrative support, 2.5 positions, 1 full-time, 2 3/4 positions. The full-time position is primarily responsible for sheriff's cells. Those have also diminished over the last 1.5 years. They are beginning to pick up pace again. They are very cumbersome. They are very complicated. They require a lot of discussion with the county attorney's office. She pitches in and helps with the vacancy now, because we've had a vacant position now for several weeks. And because of that, the sheriff's cells are sitting. The workload that we had last year, that we have this year, with the sheer number of workable hours that I've demonstrated that we have available to us between those employees, does not meet the current need. I anticipate that the requests will increase. Now, time will bear that out. But at this point, we are simply requesting an increase to a full-time position. That will allow for at least an additional couple hundred hours of productive work time that can be allotted to the completion of these civil requests that are mandated by the state. At this point, the rest of my office, my civilian support staff, my investigative specialists over warrants, my office coordinator, myself even, have to respond to the needs of these civil requests. These are the priorities. Those types of urgent requests will always take precedence. The urgent requests would be things like protective orders, stalking injunctions, things of those nature that we actually do not collect a fee on because the state mandates we will do that for free. Now, as we look at how to fund this meager increase of $3,622, let's round it up, we have collected in service fees since 2015, a ballpark figure, approximately $200,000 as revenue. I think that easily handles this meager increase. So far this year, we've already collected in revenue over $10,000 for civil process service. What else can I provide to you? I don't know how to be more compelling, other than I can tell you that at this point, additional work is stacking up. All of my support staff has their primary responsibilities. Because everybody's being pushed to civil process, we have significant responsibilities that are being undone. I don't know what to do other than to impress the urgency of fulfilling the request.
And you have one person that retired, is that correct?
Yes. Yes, that is why we have a vacancy there.
Right.
And in thinking about this, I have tried very, very hard over the years. I've been a lieutenant for about 17 years now. I've gone through many budget processes. I understand the financial limitations. I understand that we have a framework that we have to work within. In all reality, I should be requesting an additional position to accommodate the workload, as well as an increase from 3/4 time to full-time position for this one that we're speaking of. I have not made that request for an additional person because I feel that that is more appropriately served during the budget process as an additional budgetary need to be expressed at that time. I cannot impress anymore that this is an urgent need. This is a minor expense. The money that we have in our employee account right now, because the position is vacant, and the time that it will take to fill that position would easily cover this additional expense for this year. In all likelihood, anybody that we hire for that position will not come in at the top end of the spectrum. it will be years before we see any kind of financial impact to our budget.
So what I was thinking is that if with the vacancy that's been created because of the retirement, those funds could be moved over to take care of this, and that could be
that's the
made,
same
made
position.
permanent in the future
I
years.
think that's the same position. The one that retired, right, is the one that you're filling,
The one that has retired is the one that we're trying to fill.
right?
But in anticipation of doing that, we have historically had a difficult time filling three-quarter time positions. People do not want three-quarter time positions. They want full-time, completely merited benefits, or they want a half-time position or a part-time position that allows them to kind of come and go according to whatever their schedule is. Three-quarter time positions are difficult to fill. I am not sure that we could fill it in any kind of a timely fashion. And it just seemed that because it was vacant, we no longer have a person occupying it. It was the right time to look at this
The question, the overarching question I have is this coming about because of a retirement? If the person still stayed there, would we be having this discussion?
The statistical information that I provided you with the current staffing level according to our staffing plan, 2.5 positions total, I broke that down in a statistical formula for you, demonstrates that the actual workable time available according to our staffing plan, does not equate to the time that it would take to process effectively, accurately, as per law. We cannot meet that time requirement.
But my question is that if that person stayed, would we have waited until the budget cycle to have this conversation?
If that person had chose to stay, the conversation we would be having at budget cycle would be to add an additional full-time position.
Yeah, and that's more of my point is that this belongs, in my opinion, in a budget instead of in between the
This
budget.
is not requesting an additional person.
I know it's not. I know that the point is
I
that
understand.
we normally would take it. We told the sheriff, you got one position this year, let's make it work within the budget. And so that's why I'd like to find some budgetary fashions that
Yes,
will
please.
allow us, hold on, let me finish. A budgetary means that will allow us to make it through till we get to that budgeting, that budget time.
And I think that I can actually solve that. That's why I wanted to talk. So number one, this position has how long, when did they retire? How long has it been open?
Almost a month now.
Okay. Do we know what the salary on a monthly basis was?
I can tell you that. Sorry, it's tiny writing too, and I don't have my
fine.
reading glasses.
You're fine.
Okay. So for the current year, the salary is,
Look at that teamwork in the
Hang on.
sheriff's department.
sorry, I'm trying to read through the way this is broken down. I'm not certain it's broken down in monthly benefit. I've got the total salary of $37,221.60. Total benefits, $30,061.99. Total compensation is just over $67,000.
Okay, so let's
The
just round
salary-
it, 67,000
okay.
divided by
So the
12.
salary for pay period number 16 was $1,431.60. The benefits, $1,156.23. Total, $2,587.83.
Okay, so about $2,400
For a pay period.
for a pay period, and there's two pay periods in a month. So that's $4,800.
Yes,
Last time I did math, $4,800 was higher than $3,600.
indeed.
So I think we just found the $3,600 this year to keep you cost neutral.
That is exactly my point.
So then the issue is that we're looking at is next year, there's a possibility that it could be $3,600 more.
So I like that, and I think that what can be done is that if this is a top priority for the sheriff, when we look at the budget for next year, it becomes one
Yes.
of those
Yes.
where we say that's already been taken up.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
to take for the,
I agree with that.
and for the short term, we could use the funds that are not being used to cover the increase for the
That's
staffing.
Well, that's what I just did.
I
Yeah,
just
so
wanna-
just
just wanna
the
reiterate
vacancy
that.
between the person retiring and the new person. And my guess is, I'm going to ballpark this, but I'm going to ask you to write these down and bring it back to us in budget season. My guess is the person that you hire at a lower rate than the person that just retired. And so if you can look at what that total was for this year, the 3/4 position, and when you come back to us next year during budget season for the full-time position, and I want to see what you're paying the person full-time that you hired, and we can see the difference, my guess is we're looking at maybe $1,000. So if you can write those down, come back to us in budget season and show that to us, then I think that we're good.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify because I hear things going two different ways. We're not asking for another position. We're asking for a small increase to an existing position.
Right.
So, when you're saying, are we going to make this a top priority? You're saying, am I going to make that a top priority if I need new employees? Because I didn't just ask for a new position.
Well, let me clarify so that way it's understood. During the budget process that we're going through, there's going to be an increase to every department. And with that increase that is given, this will be taken off the top, meaning that if the increase is $100,000, whatever this comes out will come off, and you'll have a little bit less.
Right. So if we're looking at increasing your budget by $100,000, we'll
that
increase it by $99,000 instead. So I think we'll be okay, because that's why I said come to us next year and let's look at the difference between this this high-end 3/4 time position and what the new hires full-time position is. Let's look at that difference, and my guess is it's maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000 max, and I think we'll be fine moving forward. So I think that's okay.
So the one consideration I would ask is that, as you know, we do charge a nominal service fee for these processes. We collect a lot of money in service fees. There should be some consideration in allowing that to go right back to this service in relation to this position.
Yeah, we'd have to look at, and I know looking in silos like that, it's real easy to put, but a lot of times those silos also offset others on a revenue basis.
I understand
it's a
that,
valid
but this is
conversation.
specifically in relation to mandated civil process. So I don't think that that's an unreasonable request to at least
that
consider.
may be absolutely true. It's just
Yeah, I think
lot
it's
of
definitely a
times we look at
conversation we can
silos.
have. I think that we've seen that in
that
other
would-
areas of the county as well, and I think that that's a reasonable request.
I just want to make one comment. For me, it gets a little frustrating when, we're talking about, rolling back taxes, doing other things, and I get that. But at the same time, it is frustrating that the word level of service seems to be absent from conversation. In fact, it's frustrating that there's zero conversation. As an elected official over the largest department in the county, I've never had a conversation. I've never been asked, "Hey, Sheriff, what could we do to make things better? What, we had more tax come in. Is there things level of service wise that we could make it better for our citizens of Utah County?" And I think we're really missing a boat on that. When we're looking at something that can increase the level of service to our community for possibly $3,000, and we have a conversation like this. It's kind of ridiculous. So it would be nice to have those type of conversations. And when we talk consistency, didn't I just hear a couple weeks ago that we gave another department a 3/4 employee? No?
So, I
I'm pretty
appreciate
sure we
that,
did.
but
We did.
And you voted for that.
which one? Which one are we talking about?
For Larry, the position out of the attorney's office last week for Larry.
Was not an increase. That was not an increase to the general fund. That was not an increase. No
It's an
increase.
increase
We
to the
moved.
staffing plan and potentially an increase in
It's no
far-reaching.
different than this.
No, it's no increase. It was no increase to the general fund
Yeah.
at
Not
all.
at this time.
No, it won't be.
Not even in the future.
What we did is we just froze a position, moved the money from one position into another position.
But the position ultimately was not removed from the staffing plan?
It's remained there, but it's unfunded.
I understand that.
Right.
But what that potentially means to us is that even though something remains frozen or unfunded, if it's not stripped from the staffing plan, it could ultimately be unfrozen at some point and would then therefore impact the general fund,
And something else would have to be frozen to unfreeze it.
if that's the choice that's made,
And
yes.
yeah, and that's why I think we can do this, move it from 3/4 time to full time using existing funds that are already set aside in the county commissions. Even though the individual's retired, yes, but what funds are there available within the department that could be used to offset to be a full time for his current year and then address it in the budget cycle
Yeah,
for next
and
year?
we did that. I
I was trying to
identified those
emphasize
numbers.
that aspect.
Yeah, I identified those numbers, and I think and then like I said, as we hire somebody at a lower pay scale because they're not at retirement, I think it'll be a wash. So I think we'll be okay to keep that even and not raise the general fund. So I feel comfortable at this time.
Thank
Okay.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions that I can address for you? Thank you for the consideration and the discussion today. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the language in this should be then that we authorize the increase using existing funds within the department for calendar year 2021?
Mhm.
Right.
Would that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll make that motion.
And I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second to authorize the increase using existing funding. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay, approve and adopt a resolution amending the 2021 Utah County budget. I'm going to make, not a motion, a suggestion that we continue this one for 2 weeks. I talked with Jeremy briefly about that, that we continue this for 2 weeks so we can digest some of the amendments that we saw that were placed on there. I mean, I don't mind if we have discussions about them, but
Yeah, I had a similar, very short discussion with Jeremy on the same thing. Only this morning.
I just have a couple of questions. This doesn't change the overall budget, correct? I mean, the changes that we're looking at are from one fund to another?
Correct.
So there is no actual up or down with this. This is just moving things from one column to another.
Not exactly. There are a couple of items in Fund 680 where there was no restricted money or fund balance to pull upon that are some new items we've determined that are needs for this, immediate needs. And there are a couple of items in there. You know, the one that's just moving from the Questic implementation costs that rolled into fund balance in Fund 100, that's now past due, and so we're trying to get that one paid, but, you know, I could pay it out of Fund 100, but we're trying to get that money over into 680.
But that doesn't change the bottom line with
Correct.
the tax rate.
That is
It's just
correct.
pulling it from Fund 100 into 680.
That is correct. There are just a couple of other other items we wanted to add. But
Okay.
do we want to continue it?
Yes.
2 weeks?
I'll make a motion that we continue this agenda item 31 until July 14th.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Got a motion to second, continue it. Item number 31 till our next commission meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Okay, the next one is to adopt a resolution establishing the 2021 tax rate levies for Utah County. I know we have for a long time been working through our budget. There's two ways you can do this. You can do it where you just adopt a tax rate and then fit it into the budget after. We preferred to go through and do some adjustments here and there when it came to our budget, and therefore, I think, make it a lot easier for us to adopt a tax rate. I know that myself and Commissioner Sakovich, and then at that time, Clerk Auditor Gardner looked at that 4 point, I can't remember if it was 6 or 8, but it's 6. And that was, agreed to, in essence by all three of us. And then the $1.8 million that Commissioner Sakovich brought forward there, and we discussed, all of us agreed on that one as well. This version that we have up here right now, just talking about the Utah County general purpose, is a reflection of that with the 0.000724 tax rate. Also taking in consideration that there's an adjustment when you're talking about new growth, which was a natural consequence of it. That's this version that I have uploaded on here is that reflective of that. And then the others, as you see down here, are also adjusted appropriately. So I think this is a great day. We've been working on this. I know well, I haven't necessarily campaigned on this, but I've been talking about this openly, and there's been campaigning to do something of this nature. And so I'd anticipate that all three of us are looking to vote, to set this rate.
Yeah, I think this is a reasonable rate. I think it's one that's still providing for the needs of the county and providing a level of service to the citizens that is hopefully getting us more on track to meeting statutory guidelines. That's why I think it keeps us on track, but still only taxes at the rate necessary. So I think it's a good balance of both those things. I would like to see us in the future look at possibly breaking out the health department levy from my research. Salt Lake County, Weber County, Davis County, Summit County, Cache County, Iron County all do that. I think it's a best practice that brings transparency to the people of the county, and it really brings accountability and transparency to the citizens and also back on us as government so that people see exactly where that money is being spent. And so I know that's not currently on your plan here, but I do think that it's a good best practice that infuses transparency and accountability to government, two things that I'm a big fan of. And so I would like us to look at that in the future.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to looking at that. I think the runway was too short for this year. It just came kind of last second, and we had all this time we were discussing other stuff, and so a little bit of a longer runway would add. It wouldn't change anything necessarily.
Correct. Yeah, it would just bring some transparency.
It just is accounted for just a little bit differently, and I'd like to, personally, I'd like to just kind of run down through it and see.
I had talked to the health department director about this a couple of months ago when we were discussing the need for increased amount of fumigation efforts to mitigate the mosquito issue because we've businesses growing rapidly into these areas that used to be swampland. And so we did not come to any conclusion. It's just that we had an initial discussion how best to do that. Would be a separate levy that was to be decided. Do we talk to cities and they assess a levy and then they pay for it? That was another option. So we had not come to any particular conclusion, but that's been a kind of an ongoing discussion with that. And so I'd like to hold off on having a separate levy identified, at least for this point, because as you said, we just got this information. And I'm pleased that it's below the recommended mill rate from the state. What I see out of this is that had we not reduced the 6.6 million, the 19.3, another 6.6 million, then the rates would probably be about the same. And we would be paying a much higher amount of tax, or the people would be paying a much higher rate. So out of that, we had the 6.6 million that we've cut, but as a result of that, it reduced the levy, which then further reduced the amount of property tax automatically, nearly $3 million, $2.986 some million. And that's an overall tax reduction from the 19.3 down to 49.8% of the overall cut of the property tax. And that's what surprised me was this last bit of information I didn't quite see until late. So I was rather pleased with that progress.
Yes. And, maybe just for the record, as we, and I say we being my office, we have ran these numbers through our 10-year not perfect model. I just say that for Jeremy's benefit because he keeps touting that. But it is a model that we have, and we keep running these through that 10-year model. At this tax rate right here, it's sustainable with the projected growth. And these are all projections.
Mm-hmm.
But this is important to say, with the projections that we have, because the projections and the little multipliers that we have on there, can go up and down depending on the economy, and we all get that. But with the knowledge that we have right now and trying to project it forward, this tax rate we have right now, we have a decade of no cash flow deficiencies. I'm going to put cash flow deficiencies because I don't think it's a deficit, because it's not a deficit, it's a cash flow deficiencies that we've had in the past, not necessarily deficits. So that model allows us to be positive according to the plan as we currently see it for 10 years. And I think that that's important to say as we're looking at this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think it's a good balance. It keeps us, it keeps us for the next 10 years being solvent, while also reducing the tax rate. So I think it's a very good balance.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussions back and forth, some disagreements, of course. That happens anytime you put two people in one room. That will happen automatically. But it's been great to see how this has shaped itself over these past several months. And we've had former Commissioner Steve White as part of that process as our Board of Commissions budgetary analyst. And for me, that helped tremendously because past commissioners I have learned take a year or two to understand this. And I've had 5 months to actually work this after the COVID process. So I've count myself lucky.
Okay. Is there a motion then? I think that's what's left.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 30, I think it is.
32. It's 32.
32 as shown.
Yeah, we need to adopt a proposal uploaded by Commissioner Lee.
Yeah. And
So move to adopt
correct.
it.
I think it would be, could we just, I know this is numbers, but could we go down through the numbers so the numbers are on the record?
Okay.
Just because I know we had some little numbers that flipped around a little bit from yesterday to today.
Good point. That would be the tax rate of, proposed tax rate for 2021 of 0.000724.
For the general purposes.
The general purposes. The additional general purposes, I have it as 0.000129. There are none for line 8 or 9. And then on 10 subtotal Utah County, that reads 0.000, did I say that too many times? 30853.
Correct.
And then local assessing and collecting at 0.000142. Overall tax rate for the county is the 0.00995.
Right.
So the proposed revenue will
And
be
keep going. Do
Okay.
the rest of them.
multi-county assessing and collecting on line 14. That'd be 4 zeros followed by 1, 2, then 001046.
Service area 6.
Service area 6, service area 7 for fire. 6 is law enforcement. Service area 7 is for fire protection. That'd be 000472.
Right.
Service area 8, planning and enforcement. That's 00233. And then service area 9, which is agricultural fire protection, 0.000115. Soldier Summit Special Service District, that would be 0.002591. That's what you have?
That's what I have.
That's what mine showed too.
Then I make a motion that we adopt agenda item 32 with attachment A as we just reviewed.
And I'll second that motion.
I got a motion and a second to adopt the resolution establishing the 2021 tax rate levies as expressed. All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. Thank you. Okay, that we have already got our closed meeting set. So now we're at our work session, and there's a presentation. You've been waiting patiently back there. Now's your time, Jill. Oh, this is, I'll just tee it up for you a little bit.
Perfect.
It's a presentation from Payson City regarding the need for restrooms at the Four-Bay Trailhead Park in Payson Canyons. Just for informational purposes, the funding for this would come from our TRCC funding. I know that the TRCC Advisory Board I gave a positive recommendation for this. I don't remember what their funding level recommendation was.
It was 48.
Was that for the?
I'm not aware of what the amount was.
Yeah, I don't know if Ezra may be able to
Ezra.
look that up.
Ezra.
Ezra's the man.
He's He's looking it up.
He's looking it up right now.
I know if he was lost in some, he might be looking at other numbers, so it's just trying to get
No,
his
he's
attention.
looking at it.
40,000?
40,000?
40, yeah, so, anyway,
And this is revenue that already exists. It's already in our hands.
Already
so,
collected.
Yeah, so no additional taxes or any additional fees, yes.
that's always good to mention. But as I get started, I know I did provide a copy of the presentation that I gave to the TTAB committee back in April for your packet. We've changed some things, so pay attention to the presentation. Anyway, there's been some changes because we've been really busy since April. We've actually made a lot of these improvements, and so we want to share those with you, but then continue on with our request for TRCC funding in order to complete the last element, their last component of this project. So anyway, by way of introduction real quick, I wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Jill Spencer. I'm the city planner for the city of Payson. I also serve as the Scenic Byway Coordinator for the Nebo Loop National Scenic Byway. And then I do have a couple gentlemen here that are here as support. So we do have Mayor Bill Wright that is here if you have any questions for him, and then our city manager, Dave Tuckett. I know he stepped out just for a brief moment, but Dave Tuckett is here as well. So anyway, I'll just go through real quick this presentation, and then if you have any questions for me. So the location, I don't know how familiar all of you are with Payson Canyon. Hopefully you've spent time in Payson Canyon. It's a beautiful area.
Beautiful canyon.
Yes. So this map just shows where the project site is located in relation to Payson, as well as Elk Ridge, Salem, and other communities along the Wasatch Front. So it just shows that it is tucked up in Payson Canyon. So there's a lot of opportunity for recreation and other recreation opportunities in that area. So this map just represents where it is in relation to Payson City municipal boundaries, which is in the purple. In the tan area is Elk Ridge City. Sorry, I thought that, it doesn't show on the screen. Sorry. So the tan is Elk Ridge City. All of the area in white is unincorporated Utah County. The area that you see down towards the bottom, which is the blue hatched area, is the 500 acres that is owned by Payson City that we've purchased for a number of reasons. But that just shows where it is in context to the larger community and how it relates to Utah County, with it being unincorporated property. So next one, so the relationship between the two. So first, Payson City has purchased 500 acres in Payson Canyon. That was for a number of reasons. One was for protection or preservation of our natural resources. We do have springs in the area. It is part of our watershed. And for open space. Seeing how all of the communities in Utah County and Utah County in general is growing significantly, and the need for open space and the preservation of open space is very important. It's a very high priority to Payson City, and I'm sure it's a high priority to you as Utah County.
Hey, Jill, can I ask you?
Yes.
So, but that has not been annexed into the city?
It has not. It is still unincorporated.
You just left it in the county?
Yep, so it's still in the county. There is quite a bit of private property that is between Elk Ridge and the city-owned property that
Islands and
isn't
stuff.
incorporated either.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if we were abutting immediately adjacent to, and we didn't have those properties, we'd probably continue that conversation about annexation.
Yeah.
But there are some other properties there. But along this process too, we've had a lot of conversations with landowners in the area. So these conversations are beginning to take shape. As far as what the city's plans are for the future, what they have planned as private landowners, and maybe how that fits into the goals of Payson City and or Elk Ridge City. So, but with the growth, I think you're very well aware of the growth that we're experiencing now and what's projected in the next 20 and 30 years. Utah being expected to grow by 68% in the next 30 years. Just in the next 20 years, Utah County is going to grow to over a million residents, and Payson is going to double in size and be nearly 50,000 residents in 20 years. And so the importance of having these recreation facilities and this open space area is just going to become even more and more important. Also tourism. So this was a whole angle that we were looking at with the TTAB board, is with the Nebo Loop National Scenic Byway, bringing or drawing tourists to our area, having to have those places of interest. And so we have to maintain the intrinsic qualities that helped us receive our designation as a scenic byway. There's a lot of recreation and trails, whether it's on city property, whether it's on Forest Service property or Utah state lands. We would need to maintain those. And then just in the canyon, there's a lot of improved campground areas, and then there's a lot of dispersed camping throughout the canyon. So there is a lot of recreation opportunities and trails in the canyon for our residents, Utah County residents, as well as visitors outside of our county and even outside of the state to enjoy when they come to our area. And then also Payson City just released a new brand. We just rebranded our community, and our tagline is Home to Adventure. And so we've been spotlighting a lot of the adventure that you can find in South Utah County, specifically the Payson area and along the scenic byway.
Wait, I thought you were still the Onion.
We're still Onions on Labor Day weekend. So still come down and enjoy, Onion days. Yeah. So I don't know if we'll ever get rid of the Onion. I think that was something that
I
was
have
set
one of your
in
binders that has that on there, and so
What's that?
has the Onion on there.
Yeah, there's still, and like I said, we'll still use it for Onion Days.
Okay.
But moving forward as a city and with our brand, we've expanded that to more adventure than maybe just some of the onion farms that were there in the 1920s. Anyway, so we've expanded that. But how it relates to Utah County, as I mentioned, it's part of the unincorporated area, but it's not even really about boundaries. It's about working together cooperatively as communities through Utah County or coming together with county government to make sure that we're looking at what the needs are for the larger community. And just the open space and recreation opportunities. Now, our management plan, we put a management plan together for our 500 acres that the city owns, recognizing that's a lot of acreage to take care of. What is that going to be used for? How's it going to be managed? And so we put that together, and so we compared that a little bit to the goals of your general plan, of Utah County's general plan. And there's a couple of things that stood out when I was doing that comparison, and one is multi-jurisdictional cooperative efforts for county-wide recreational trail system. And many of you may be aware of those efforts, whether it is working with the communities in the county or working with Mountain Land Association of Governments. And also even on-the-ground efforts are taking place by the Utah Valley Trails Alliance. And so they're finding ways that they can work with the communities and the counties and the Forest Service and other agencies in order to get that regional trail system in place. So there's been a lot of effort and success that way. Canyons should be designated for recreation use and protect water quality, riparian areas, and critical wildlife habitat. So that's exactly what Payson City is, or Payson Canyon is about. That's one of the things that makes our scenic byway so unique. And so that goes very along nicely with the goals of the general plan. And then lastly, maintain additional recreation, or maintain the recreation areas and have additional recreation areas throughout the county as there's increased public demand. So that just goes back to those numbers, the projected numbers for growth in our county. And so the need in order to continue working together to make this happen. So I want to touch on the Nebo Loop a little bit. If you have not taken a drive around the Nebo Loop, do so anytime, but here in September will probably be the prettiest time.
It's beautiful.
Yes, yeah. with the fall colors. So it's beautiful year round, actually. But it's 38 miles throughout the Uinta-Wasatch Cache National Forest. There are two gateway cities. You have Payson on the north, and you have Nephi in the south, and then it traverses over two counties. So we have Utah County on the north and Juab County on the south. So I work very closely with Utah County as well as with Juab County, Juab Travel Council, the Utah Office of Tourism, a lot of different groups in order to make, promote the scenic byway. But there are a lot of popular sites if you have not been up there or if you just need a reminder. But you do have the high peaks of Mount Nebo. You have the rock formations at Devil's Kitchen. So that's a geologic wonder to be seen. Recreational.
It's a hidden one.
What's that?
People don't know about that.
And
hidden.
It's a nice little walk. Just park at the parking lot, walk down a little trail.
You don't have to go all the way to Bryce.
Yeah, you don't have to go all the way to Bryce.
Is nice.
Just go here and it is amazing. The diversity that you see along the scenic byway. Absolutely, especially with those red rocks. And then you've got the recreation opportunities at the designated campgrounds, specifically Payson Lakes. That's one of the large recreation sites there. We also have Black Hawk. Unfortunately, Black Hawk was destroyed with the Bald Mountain Fire. So we're working with the Forest Service to find some funding sources also in order to get that one back into the system because we have a lot of demand but some of those facilities they're no longer available. And then Petticoat Cliffs and some other areas that are there in Juab County. So when you're going along the scenic byway also, just continue up over and go down through Juab County and then enjoy, something in Nephi as well. But we do cater to the traveling public. We do have about, numbers that I received from the Forest Service, about 1 million people visit areas along the scenic byway annually. That is a lot of traffic along the byways, and the need for more facilities because of the increased public demand. And then also just the importance of that is to the small communities, the small gateway communities. I mean, we need to encourage that tourism to get them to come to our communities and spend some time and some money in our communities. But even back in 2019, these were some of the states that I received from the visitor center. So we have a visitor center at the Petite Neat Museum in Payson, and then the DUP Museum in Nephi. And so just talking with them, there wasn't any activity or information that was gathered in 2020 due to COVID. However, in 2019, they had people from Missouri, Washington, Iowa, South Dakota, Idaho. So all across the country, people are coming to enjoy the beautiful landscapes of Utah, and specifically what we have here in Utah County. I touched a little bit on the intrinsic qualities, but in order to maintain our scenic byway status, we have to make sure that we are maintaining the natural, scenic, historic, cultural, archaeological, and recreational uniqueness of the scenic byway. So this is just another effort for us in order to enhance the recreational features along the byway. And then it can't be done without partnerships and cooperative efforts. As I mentioned, we have a lot of scenic byway partners that we work with in order to make this happen. And Utah County is part of that partnership. And so we do appreciate your participation and your guidance and your assistance with anything along the byway. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the management plan. We put this new management plan. We've had one since 2008. We just updated it with the assistance of the National Park Service just last fall. So it's been updated. But a lot of things that we heard from the community was we want biking and hiking and trails, and we want pavilions, and we want improved areas, we want parking lots. There was a number of things that they had talked about that they wanted. And so as part of that, recognizing that there's a lot of existing trails that are within the area, we had a lot of needs that were identified through that planning process. We identified that we needed to formalize access points and complete trailhead improvements, and specifically parking areas. I mean, if you were not a local, if you didn't know those secret ways to get into this property to access those trails, you would spend hours up there trying to find, where Forebay was located. And so we saw the need that we needed to have a parking lot or a trailhead where people knew this is the place to start, this is where you can get. So prior to our parking lot being built, we had a lot of people that were parking on the road. Road is very busy, and it's also a narrow, canyon road. Or they were parking on private property. The private property owners recognized that there was not a parking lot, and they do know that parking's being done there, but of course they would prefer that parking be done on public property if at all possible. So anyway, we were concerned about trespass. The number of vehicles varies throughout the year, with, of course, most of the parking needed within, probably spring through fall. Winter parking is done up at the Maple Dell Boy Scout camp. They're overflow parking. That's where a lot of people park for the winter months in order to do cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or even snowmobiling. But we did recognize we needed parking, we needed fencing, we needed to designate where those approved access points were so they weren't trespassing on private property, because there still is a lot of private property located in Payson Canyon. We needed improved picnic areas, signage, and wildland fire mitigation. So with this one project, we are well on our way to taking care of some of these needs that were identified through that planning process. So we put this proposal together to put together this trailhead that would include parking stalls. There would be a pedestrian, prefabricated pedestrian truss bridge that would go over the Petite Neat Creek Channel. There'd be restroom facilities, there'd be fencing, there'd be signage, there would be a number of things that would be accommodated on this trailhead. So the proposal before the commission, and that was proposed to the TTAB board back in April, was funding to go towards or to finish the CXT vault restroom. So here's just another site showing, where it is in relation to Petite Creek and the connection of the trail systems that are already in place. So one of the biggest changes that I made from the presentation that was in your packet was now we actually have pictures of the completed project. And so engineer plans have been done. We have agency permits. We got approval from Payson City with us being the landowner. We got approvals from Utah County, community development for the bridge, Public Works for the encroachment permit in order to have the additional connection onto the Canyon Road. We also had to get approval from the Utah Division of Water Rights in order to place that bridge over the waterway, over Petite Creek. So the improvements that have been installed, so it was installed to plan. So we have the parking lot that's completed, the pedestrian truss bridge, the trail connections, fencing has been installed, landscaping, signage. There's also a picnic table, garbage cans, different things that have actually been installed. And as part of our branding rollout a few weeks ago, we actually had a ribbon cutting for this trailhead park. But there is only one thing missing. So I need dramatic music. Anyway, so as you can see here, there's just one portion of this project that is not complete, and that is for the restroom facility. And so that is what we're asking for.
But one of those portable outhouses there.
Yeah. We just
For the
moved the
picture.
porta potties there for a little while. So, but we are looking at a request for $40,000 for the CXT restroom building. It'd be a prefabricated double vault restroom, similar to what is shown here on this slide. It would be subcontracted with CXT directly, and so there could be a $10,000. Well, it was $50,000. $40,000 is with the $10,000 savings if we go direct with them instead of working through another contractor. There is one change that we had to make that you may have noticed with the pictures. Our initial location for the vault restroom was closer to the bridge and to the Petite Creek channel. After submitting that for review to your staff, the health department had indicated it could not be that close to the waterway. And so that's why we flipped it to the other side. So it'll be closer to the road to meet the requirements of the county health department. So we have that. And then just project justification. I just wanted to provide, what this project cost the city. It is a big effort. From Payson City, we were successful in receiving a grant from GOED, the Outdoor Recreation Grant. And so that is funding, a significant portion of this project. The Payson City is contributing nearly $100,000, and then the request of Utah County would be $40,000 to complete the restrooms. So it expands open space and recreation resources to residents of Utah County, our communities, and to those that are visiting the scenic byway. This is a multi-jurisdictional cooperation, again, and you see this with a lot of things that you deal with. It takes a lot of agencies in order to make some of these projects work. And then it also implements the goals of Payson City as well as Utah County with your general plan. And with that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions for me or for Mayor Wright or Manager Tuckett, we would be happy to help you in making, as you deliberate and discuss. I know that this is just a work session today and there will be no decision today, but I do appreciate the opportunity of being able to come and share this with you. And if there's any other information you need as you make those decisions, I know that there's always more requests than there is funding. That's just a given. But we're hoping where this is only 15% of the total project costs, that it's something that Utah County will really consider and give us that funding.
I appreciate that because we have kind of unofficially had an understanding that projects need to be at least under the 35%, of the total project. So this one's down at the 15. So
yeah.
I when I started writing down numbers, then you summarized the whole thing with all the numbers. And I was like, pen down.
So you have it, and over the 4th of July weekend coming up, go drive up there and see the trailhead. Go park, see it. and, you know, take, you know, a hike up in Forbay and see the awesome recreation area we have in Payson Canyon. I mean, it's gonna be a great thing for all of our area. It's getting more and more popular by the day, which is good and bad, but we know that that there's a need, and we can see that there's a need. So, unless you have more questions for me, that's the end of my presentation.
I'd just like to emphasize that for those who might be just tuning in after a commercial somewhere, that this TRCC, this is Tourism Recreation Convention, tax money that's already in receipt. We have it, so to speak, in the bank. This is every time we go to a restaurant and eat, or a hamburger or somewhere like that, we pay a small amount that goes to the county for these types of projects. And so we have a fund set aside for this type of thing. So it's no additional tax.
Yes. And we appreciate, you know, having, I guess, sort of that earmark to be used for recreation and tourism and cultural improvements. So anyway, thank you
very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Mayor, make sure and go up to my office before you leave. I just want to remind you. Okay. All right. So with that, we will move into our closed meetings. Thank you.
Goodbye.
I almost ate this before.